Welcome to Brea Talks, bringing you straightforward, accessible content from industry leaders and experts with no agendas or decisions to make. Just important topics affecting all of us and how they specifically apply to Brea. We'll clear out the noise, debunk myths, and give helpful, concise information. So now, we invite you to listen in as Brea Talks.
Hello everyone. Today, Brea Talks, Improving Communities Through Good Design. I'm David Crabtree, Community Development Director for the City of Brea, and I'm joined today by Mr. Nate Cherry, who is the Planning Director at Gensler Associates. Nate, welcome to Brea. And let's just get right into our topic. How do we get here? You know, suburbia morphing, into more urban and design and communities. Can you help me with that a bit?
Sure. When you think about Brea's history, it's really very illustrative of how we got here. It started with oranges, oil, and opportunity, and it really was always a city that took advantage of opportunities that were presented to it. So originally it was, agricultural history, and then the oil history, and then really private development, commercial and residential development, as it became sort of a suburban enclave of Orange County and the city of Los Angeles. And then in the 70s, things really started to accelerate and change. This suburban sprawl of northern Orange County resulted in the changing of retail. And the mall, I think, in the 70s was a really critical piece of that. The Brea Mall really became sort of what they call a category killer, in the sense that it took most of the retailing out of the downtown core and really centralized it. It put Brea on the map really as a retail center for all of North Orange County. The second thing that happened is in the 90s is the expansion of Imperial Boulevard, which resulted in the existing buildings of downtown really having to be demolished. And if it weren't tough enough that the buildings had to go, they really didn't anticipate how the changing tastes of retail existed. And so what happened is the downtown had to be totally redeveloped.
Right, that whole change with Brea Boulevard needing to become more of a major arterial to move traffic around North Orange County.
Yeah, but Brea had one thing that a lot of places don't, and which was a community that was really invested in its future. And I think that was a critical piece, because I think people really wanted to spend time and commit themselves to really brainstorming. There was some incredible leadership here that made that happen, but they had a real sense of nostalgia about what downtown could be, and that was critical. At the same time, in the 80s and 90s, Brea really started to expand as an office center for Northern Orange County. So up to 300,000 people were coming to Brea during the day, and they had a real desire to have a place to shop, go to lunch, a place. There needed to be a there. So the combination of residents who really had this nostalgia and the office community who wanted a place to go, I think really pushed downtown to become what it is today. And of course, downtown is totally different from what the old downtown was, but it has some of those same elements that the old downtown had.
It's interesting, your words take me back to some of that early work we did, working on the Idea Fair back in 1996, and some of the things we heard then echo today too, as we've been out as the city staff talking to our community through Brea Envisions, and you still continue to hear that, and it's become a bit of a cliche, but it's so true. You hear people say, it's got that small town feel, and our residents really have enjoyed that. It's really one of the values.
Definitely, and it has been an incredible success story, and Brea has always been as long as I've worked here, had this very nimble, idea of how the economy is changing and has always been able to anticipate and make the most out of those opportunities, but at the same time always has retained this real core value of small town feel, a place for brands. I always hear that whenever I'm here, is this is a place for brands. And even that definition has widened.
Well, and can you talk a little bit about, some of your words take me to that whole idea of, visioning and, Brean's idea for a place and some of the work that's been done. What does that look like for Brea? This idea of improving our community through design. There's some of the things we've done in the past that we might be able to build on for the future, but getting a little more into how we go forward from there, and then we'll talk a little more as we get into this about opportunities and tools and so forth.
Right. Well, I think one of the big challenges Brea's had, part of its cultural and then part of its technological, and I'll explain what I mean. Culturally, Brea has become much more diverse and it's expanded. It's become very popular. So because of the success of downtown and because Brea has become such a popular place to be and the secret's gotten out, that Brea's got great governance, it has a great downtown, it has a great core of industries and tremendous stability, great schools. That has expanded what Brea really has to do. And no living city, the only constant in a real city is change. And so Brea's had to anticipate those changes. For example, La Floresta with the Unical site, a tremendous amphitheater and a vaunted address at one time, really no longer had a strong use. And so the changing of La Floresta to La Floresta as a mixed-use community, I think has created, for example, a second anchor, an eastern anchor for brands. And I think that's been a very positive change. So it's not just one downtown, now it has multiple anchors, the expansion of open spaces and the changing nature of transit. Those are all things that Brea continues to anticipate and fold into its changing nature of the city. But it's not easy because a lot of folks still see Brea as a singular look and feel. And that change is just inevitable, and the ability to anticipate change is key to any city's success.
Yeah, it's interesting. So often as the staff will be talking with our residents, and you have some that really cling to the literal meaning of that small town, and others who are perhaps willing to accept the change and understand the value of that for the community and moving forward. And you talk about the diversity and people want new and different things. Can you talk a little bit about the challenge of maintaining that small town feel? And as you've said, we're on a bit of a national stage now with interest in investment and so forth. Can we have our cake and eat it too? Can we achieve those things?
Yeah, I think you can. I think you have to commit yourself to the process of certainly making that happen. I think it's a lot more complex than it used to be. I think, culturally and technologically, a lot of things have changed. So more people are working at home. Brea has become tremendously more diverse than it used to be. I think, with social media and so on, there's a lot more mistrust of the process, and, with fake news and all the challenges that we face with our ability just to communicate with each other. So I think those things, frankly, weren't as much of a challenge as they are now. But I guess the solace is Brea has great fundamentals. It's always committed to the process, and it has this amazing legacy of success that it's been able to build on for a long time. So those are fundamentals that remain really strong.
A lot of our our discussions so far, some folks, myself included at one time in the past, you think of good design and people's minds go to color and materials and things like this, and something in our relationship and with you as an advisor to our community, you've always you talk a little bit about what good design isn't or isn't limited to, I suppose. It's not just those colors and materials and things. You talk a little bit about the importance of the process.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I've had the good fortune of working here for 22 years, and you and I both had a lot more hair back then, but what's interesting is I think design is a tool. I'm a designer. It's an incredibly powerful tool. But what's more important is design with strategy, is really understanding what good is and what you're trying to do. And so, for example, like a hotel in downtown. A hotel was a part of the old downtown. I think a hotel, for example, makes downtown more competitive. It brings a tremendous amenity to residents and also workers in the area, and it's something that you used to have, and it fills a void that that has been a challenge for a number of years. So strategically, those all check the box. What the design of the hotel is matters, but it's way more important to understand what the role of the land use is and how does it fit into your vision for what a successful downtown is.
Very good. As we talk about design, and I think of Brea's future, and you've touched on a few things, but maybe we can expand a little more on some of the problems or issues or myths that are out there, what you think some of this community's challenges might be for the future, and any thoughts or inspiration for how we tackle some of that.
Yeah, well, I think what's always made Brea unique was the sense of trust and the sense of communication and commitment to the process that residents and people who work for the city, and it's just something you feel, and it's something that I've always enjoyed working here. And I just think that that's a real secret weapon for the city. I think it makes it unique. I think it's something that Brea has enjoyed for a long time. I think the challenges are not accepting that the world is more complicated than it used to be. The changing nature, I think we have to look at best practices, and we always have to be curious about what's happening elsewhere. I think Brea's at its best when it says, what are our core values? I think it's challenged when it says, well, that happens in X, and that, we're Brea, we're different. That's true, but we always have to be curious about what's happening in other cities, and we always have to be willing to look and test new ideas and be willing to trust each other, to have that dialogue, to figure out what works here, what has the right fit for this place.
That's a great observation, and often members of our community can think, well, the city will tell you, what kind of design we're looking for, Mr. or Ms. Developer.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you've always instilled for us is you've got to have that communication with somebody that's looking to invest in your community.
Yeah.
You've got to understand what some of their needs are, and then help to kind of fashion a fit for your community. Can you talk about that collaboration and any examples that might come to mind?
One of the things that's so interesting about Brea is it's become, when we did the downtown master plan, the national tenants that were brought to that project, there was an Old Navy, and there was the theaters. Those were sort of the national or regional tenants, but the developer was local, California developer. now you have national developers who really want to do work here and are doing phenomenal projects. You know, you have La Floresta with a Whole Foods. I mean, the quality of the retail, the quality of the design is at another level. You've got, you know, developers from Newport Beach coming here and, you know, from all over the United States. And so that's a relationship that has to have give and take on both sides. The national developers are great. They bring a higher level of quality and a desire to do something terrific. At the same time, they need to understand what works for Brea. And so the community really has to be engaged in that conversation. There has to be mutual trust, and it's all about fit, right? Not every developer is right for this place, or not every developer knows everything that they need to about this place in order to be successful. So it really comes back to the dialogue, the conversation, and the trust.
You know, that whole idea of that co-authorship is something that we've always you know, enjoyed the conversations with the developers that want to come into town. And you know, sometimes those conversations can be immediately productive. Sometimes it takes a little, you know, to your point of they need to get to know Brea a little bit. What would you tell a developer coming into this community with your experience here? You know, what might be some good insights for a developer, somebody looking to do something in Brea?
Well, you know what's interesting, what's changed is, you know, the downtown, for example, had a master plan, it had design guidelines, and it had an armature and a lot of history that made it not easy, but it made it easier to really direct that work. And I still am asked to do design review on projects, and it's thrilling to be a part of it. It's wonderful. As the success expands, it becomes a little bit more complex because, you know, you're talking about different sites that are maybe outside the downtown or might have a relationship to a major arterial. That arterial might be changing just from use patterns and people's desires, how they want to get around. And one of the things Brea has always had is, you know, the design review process and the using of consultants to offer alternative visions or interpret or act as an honest broker between the developer and the city itself, and really problem solve through drawings and facilitation. And that can also be done with City Council and Planning Commission, by the way. You know, things like charrettes and really visioning. We do a lot of it here. We could always do more. And really, you know, I think some of the city leaders here have been really good about documenting all the ideas that have been incorporated. They might not happen tomorrow, but over time, it's really quite astounding how many of those ideas have been incorporated into the.
Yeah, I know. We were talking the other day, and you reminded me of, you know, '96 when we did the downtown idea fair, and the ideas we culled from the community, and then you know, the satisfaction to go down there today and take that list and see how many things were incorporated, and it's really a you know, a great track record.
Yeah.
Let me put you on the spot a little bit. You know, your work is not only you know, across the United States, but even worldwide. What are some of the, you know, design challenges that are out there in helping other communities be successful with good design?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's most common that every city is wrestling with right now is mobility and how do people get around, and who is. You know, that's a big challenge, is, you know, the accommodation of other modes other than the car, which is absolutely happening, but it's getting people to decide, well, this street, not that street, and, you know, prioritizing changes is huge. I think the changing nature of work is another huge change. So people are working more at home, people are more entrepreneurial, they're not working in old office buildings anymore, they're sort of working out of their house, so FedEx deliveries and, you know, the changing nature of the home as an office, I would say. Affordability, that's a huge issue, is, Brea has become so successful, some would argue it's not affordable for, the next generation. And that every city that's been, had a good track record like yours, they all wrestle with that. But, Brea does too.
Yeah.
But, those are sort of the core issues. Amount of open space. I think your Rails to Trails initiative has been fantastic. Some of the park spaces, you guys have done a great job.
So it sounds like some of those national issues are, we see them right here in Little Brea, and to our the staff, our decision makers that have lived the examples we've had. Any insights for meeting some of these challenges that your words about remaining open to new and creative solutions are good touchstones. Other things that might be good for us to keep in mind as we try to improve our community with good design.
Yeah, I think that you only have so much land, and Brea is getting to a point where it really has to be clear about what its priorities are. I think the housing challenges that Brea faces, how can we connect other areas for multifamily that benefit from other transportation improvements or connections to downtown? If we're really going to make downtown successful and take advantage of all the amenities and all the events, how can we connect seniors more closely to downtown? How can we provide other services? I think in the next 10 years, we're going to be looking at autonomy, possibly converting some of those parking garages might be in the cards in the future. In 10 years, a lot of our clients are building so much less parking than they used to. So I think anticipating those things with things like drop-offs for autonomous vehicles and ride share and active transportation, that's just going to take so much pressure off your streets.
Very good. Well, Nate, thank you for joining us today. And thank you for tuning in. And keep listening as Brea talks.